All right, hello everyone. I thought I'd start by talking a little bit about myself. So I actually have quite an interesting background to tech. My background is as a writer. My undergraduate degree is actually in creative and professional writing. I worked for a very long time as a journalist and worked as a published author as well. From there, I noticed that no one in the arts industry could actually do anything on the internet. It was hard enough to get them to have a Facebook page. Their websites were terrible. So I wanted to learn a little bit more to do more online for this industry, and that's how I ended up coming into web. I ended up branching out because I don't like not knowing things. So if I find a gap or someone else can do something that I find interesting and I can't do it, I'll learn it. As a result, you can see there's some interesting skills up there. One of the things I've done recently is motion graphics. I've worked in the film industry in Australia and worked on a lot of films as well. But my primary background is in tech, and as I was introduced, I do work in tech. I teach web design at a university in Australia, and I've got my PhD that looks at user interfaces and user experience design. So today I'm going to look at front-end and back-end developers because I came into tech as a graphic designer. So I very much came in learning front-end technologies. I'm very lucky that my husband also works in tech as a full-stack developer. And when I showed interest in learning back-end, primarily because he could do it and I couldn't, he was very, very patient in teaching me. But it was quite a hard journey because I wasn't used to how logical it was. And we actually got there by quite an interesting path. And he had to start using metaphors to explain stuff for me. On a very basic level, he'd try and explain something to me. I'd ask why it worked that way, why I had to use that particular code. And I'd get increasingly frustrated when he'd go, "That's just the way it is." So, as I said, I've got quite an interesting background in tech, and so does my husband, and everyone I know, all the men I know in the industry in Australia, don't have a computer science degree. They've all come from a STEM background. Most of the women that I know in tech don't have a STEM background. They've come from front-end development and from graphic design and from more creative fields. So I want to talk a little bit about the stereotypes that I've seen in tech. So these are all things that have been said to me at some point. For front-end development, I get that it's very artistic and creative, that it's quite visual, that it focuses on the big picture, and that it's very UX-focused. And as a result of that, it's seen as quite emotional and personable because UX design, user experience, is about being able to understand your customer, being able to follow a user journey, put yourself in their footsteps, and make sure you understand how they're going to be using the product. I also get that it's very easy. That the languages you've got to learn to do front-end aren't actually that hard to master. But on the flip side, I've also been told that front-end developers repeatedly get it wrong. And that we know nothing about the back end. And the thing is, and I'm going to touch on that second last point there, that most people get it wrong, because it's actually quite hard, as all of you will know. Front-end development is about getting something to work across different browsers and across different devices. So, let's go back. Where were we? So these are mistakes that I've actually caught in the code for back-end developers. So the first one there, overqualifying selectors unnecessarily. The second one's a pet peeve of mine, and that's having the PX on 0, which is just unnecessary. The next one is one I consider quite unforgivable, and that's saying the color name and not giving me the hex code or the RGB code, especially coming from the background as a designer. If I've got a particular shade of red, that's for a reason, and a lot of the time that's because it's in the style guide for the company we're working for. Font family, so not specifying a backup font. duplicating selectors and not removing redundant styles, and then using important as a band-aid to fix that problem, meaning I've got to go through the code, delete all the redundant styles, and try and work out what's going wrong. Not optimizing images is one of the biggest ones I get. Someone having a really large image that's 4,000 pixels wide when we're actually cropping it down to about 500, creating unnecessary download times. Using inline styles, again, making it harder for me to make changes to your code. Forgetting the meta tags, and the biggest mistake I've ever seen was a back-end developer who didn't declare the doc type. Not using Flexbox and CSS Grid, and then again, browser support and not using @supports, which is a big one because I work on a lot of teams where they'll do a lot more experimental code that does have very little support. All right, so coming back to stereotypes, these are a lot of things that I've heard about back-end developers, and there are a lot of things that I get from my husband. Logical, serious, very detail-oriented, and these are things that he carries through to his personal life as well. It makes it very hard to argue with him. That it's also very hard, that the languages are much harder to master than HTML, CSS, and JavaScript, and that it's usually full stack. It's something I get a lot, that it's full stack as front end isn't that hard to master and we're mostly unnecessary. And also that full stack's more sought after in the industry, which at least in Australia isn't true. People prefer you to be specialised in one particular area. The other thing you might notice looking quickly at those two stereotypes is you can see how gendered they are. I described front-end developers as being very artistic, very creative, very visual, quite emotional. I've described back-end developers as being very logical, serious, detail-oriented. If I were to get you to describe masculinity versus femininity, you'd probably use very similar language. So even the salaries suggest back-end is more complex. This is taken from the Software Guild in the US, and you can see a back-end developer does get paid more on average than a front-end developer. But again, these are just stereotypes. The industry doesn't actually look like this. This is a study done by HackerBank, and they asked women what software languages they actually knew. And it's not just CSS, HTML, and JavaScript. You can see they've got C, C++, Python, PHP, C#, which is the primary language we use in development back in Perth in Australia. So women actually know a lot more code than just the basic front-end stuff. But despite that, they're underrepresented globally. Pearson and Frank did a survey that shows 11% of the tech industry worldwide is female. And this becomes a bigger issue when we look into the skill shortage we've got in the industry. A lot of countries don't have enough IT people, especially in the UK is a classic example. Women also offer a lot of different skills to men. My husband's got a background at STEM. It makes him really great at maths, and there's quite a few times I've had him step in and fix my code for me. On the flip side, if something goes wrong and something breaks, I can fix it much faster than my husband. My background means I look at the problem from very different angles, very creative angles. The other issue we've got is employees tend to pass over people with a computer science degree. There's a good reason for this that I'll touch on, but this does disadvantage women. At uni level, as I said, I'm a lecturer, and I've got to hire people to teach our classes that are qualified in that area. I can't hire someone who's only got experience. You've got to have a degree relevant to the area you're studying. In computer science, that's incredibly hard to do. It's very hard to find someone who wants to teach who also has a degree in that particular area. Most people, including men and women, come from very different paths. I also tend to get typecast as a front-end developer. I've gone for back-end jobs. I've made it to the interview stage, walked into the room and had the person interviewing me insist on interviewing me for the role as the designer and not as the developer that I applied for. It's presumed when people see me that I don't have the necessary skills to do that job, and I need to prove otherwise. The experience on my resume hasn't always been enough for me to do that, but I can't use something like a computer science degree to give me that qualification to show I can do those skills. And there's two reasons why, and the main one is that a computer science degree is outdated. Generally, before you've even started, it's sometimes halfway through. It can be very hard to get a job with a degree when the tech industry changes so quickly. The other reason, as many of you have probably noticed, is a lot of jobs in the industry are at experience level and not entry level, making it harder not just for women, but for anyone to get that foot in the door. As a result, I think I must be holding my finger on the button far too long. Let's jump back again. Women, regardless of age, are much more likely to occupy junior roles. Women over 35 are 3 times more likely to occupy a junior position than a man. Women do also tend to come to tech later than men. A lot of women I know have made the change much later on in their careers. However, the lack of experience and proof of qualification can make it really hard to get promoted up into senior positions. When women do have that experience, the stats show that they're not always getting promoted. But it's not just back-end and front-end development that's the problem. It's an industry-wide problem. This graph shows the percentage of female employees in some of the biggest tech companies in the world. And these aren't developers, these aren't just technical skills roles. These are percentage of female employees right down to secretaries and receptionists. And you can see there aren't very many. It's not that we're looking at needing to give women technical skills. It's about finding ways to keep women in the industry and make it an industry that they want to be a part of. We did already identify a problem. Many years ago, we identified that women weren't learning to code. We did a lot of things to solve that, and we've seen that it works. Women are learning to code younger, but they're still not staying in the industry. In India, 85% of women will leave the tech industry in the first 15 years. So we are teaching them to learn to code. When I learned to code, I first learned in high school. I used C and made a very basic Hello World application when I was about 16, because the guy I had a crush on was a programmer. After failing to gain his interest, I then moved on and went back to art and came back to programming when my husband switched jobs from mechanical engineering to software, and he was talking about things I couldn't understand, and I found that really annoying. So I did come to it quite late, but my nieces who were in high school now started learning to code when they were 10 years old. There are camps that we have for women. The picture I've got on this slide is one of the initiatives we have in Perth called Nose Girls. There's also a global initiative, She Codes, where we pair up mentors with young girls, usually in high school, but of any age. The gap between men and women who learn to code under the age of 16 is therefore narrowing. 13.9% of women between the ages of 18 and 24 have started coding when they were in school. So the issue we're seeing with women in the industry isn't about technical skills. So for me, imposter syndrome was partly to blame. Do you guys familiar with the term imposter syndrome? Cool. So for those who aren't, imposter syndrome is, as it says, feeling like you don't belong. So debugging and solving problems is really hard and frustrating. And as I was talking to the speakers earlier, I won't go to bed till I've fixed my code. If something's wrong, even though I know sleep's going to help, I will stay up and drive myself crazy trying to fix it. And the next morning, it'll be something really simple, like a grammatical error that I've missed. And the reason that I do that is because it's really easy for me to fall into the trap of feeling like I simply don't belong and not good and aren't good enough. The fact that I can't solve that particular problem is suddenly proof that I don't belong in the industry. And I don't always have someone to talk my problems through with. I'm very thankful that I do have my husband, but he can be quite undermining because he's very competitive. When I do ask for help, sometimes those people presume that's proof that I know nothing. I was once at a conference, and after telling a guy that I was a UX designer, he proceeded to explain to me what user experience design was. So even when I do ask for help with code, and my husband's very guilty of this as well, especially because he taught me, it's very, very quick for people to take giant steps back and explain it from the beginning. So it's a culture problem that we've got, not one with technical skills. 73% of people surveyed said that they thought the tech industry was sexist. And there are 3 problems identified: having a really macho culture, inclusion, and a lack of effective sponsors. So what can we do? The issue I raised with imposter syndrome isn't something that's easily fixed. That's something that I have to work through myself, and it's not something anybody else can help with. But there are things that we can do. If you're a manager, for example, don't assign me menial jobs. The amount of companies I've worked in where I've been the one in charge of coffee runs, I've been the one always assigned note-taking in meetings, or I've been the one assigned party planning. I get that last one a lot because I used to work in event management. So promote women mentors in the workplace and participation in external mentorship programs like I mentioned. The big one for me here, though, is it doesn't have to be females mentoring other females. The people who got me into the industry weren't female, they were men. The men were the gatekeepers in this industry because it is very male-dominated, and chances are the people hiring me are going to be male. The male mentors I helped made it a much safer place for me to come into. Don't promote women to meet quotas. This is a big one for me because I've seen women promoted in the tech industry simply because they don't have females on the board, they don't have females in management, and those women don't get listened to when they have opinions as a result. Promote women who have earned the right to be in that job that other women can look up to. Also, be aware of hiring bias. Studies show that when we hire people, we're going to hire the people we get along with the most, and those are going to be the people who look and sound like us. If you're in a very male-dominated company, that means chances are you're going to unconsciously lean towards hiring the male over a female. Also, don't treat resumes as linear. As you saw in my background, I came from a very interesting path. And as a result, I've got very different skills that I can bring to my work. But I can get short-sighted there with transferable skills when people try and look at the linear path I've taken through tech. Watch for masculine language in job advertisements and internal comms. It's fine for your company to advertise a win at all costs to wear the best attitude to your clients, but think about if that's the kind of culture that you want to be promoting internally. And also think about desirable skills on job ads. Most men I know will apply for a job even if they don't meet the desirable skills. On the flip side, a lot of women won't. They'll see the desirable skills, see they don't have them, and decide it's not worth applying because there's someone else in the industry that probably will apply and does have them. And lastly, even if you're not a manager, there are a few things that you can do. Your company's not a men's locker room, and this is the hardest thing that I've had to combat in the tech industry. Watch for masculine language. Again, be careful of your language in your emails, but be careful of office talk. Workplace decoration can make me feel really isolated. That office talk I've got as the last point as well because that's really important to me. The amount of times I've been in the office and had to overhear men talking about picking up women or judging how they look while I'm in the room. If I wrote the code, give me credit. If I asked for your help and you helped with me, you can have some of the credit. But I've quite frequently written programs and have another guy claim it entirely as their own because they helped on part of it. And there are a few quick slides that I'm going to finish on. And these are things people have actually said to me in the industry. I overheard a man once say she only got the job because she's female. I get this every time I walk in the room. As a result, when I'm working in tech, when I'm doing something in programming, I will change how I dress. I won't be in a dress like you see me today. I'll wear pants, I'll wear a jacket, I'll be very careful to button my shirt up. If I look feminine, if I look pretty, people presume it's because I'm the designer, because I'm artistic. And I get this one a lot when I introduce myself, that I don't look like someone who knows how to code. And this one probably annoys me the most, the idea that simply by looking at someone, you can judge what skills they have and what job they do. So that's it from me. Thank you very much.